Marcus Johnson was 12 years old when his life changed forever. Every morning, he woke up at 5:30 a.m. in the small, cold apartment he shared with his mother on Detroit's east side. Their home wasn't much, just a one-bedroom apartment with peeling wallpaper and a window that never closed properly. Marcus slept on an old couch in the living room, while his mother took the bedroom that had a leaking ceiling when it rained. On this particular Monday morning in September, Marcus stood in front of their bathroom mirror, trying his best to make his worn-out clothes look better. He had exactly 2 pairs of pants and 3 shirts in his small closet. Today, he was wearing the better pair of pants, even though they were slightly short at the ankles because he had grown taller over the summer. His white shirt, though clean, had a small yellow stain near the collar that wouldn't go away no matter how many times his mother washed it. The worst part of his outfit was his shoes. The once white sneakers were now a dirty gray, and the right shoe had a big hole near the toe. Last night, his mother had tried to fix it with duct tape again, but Marcus knew it wouldn't last long. These shoes were the third-hand gifts from their church's donation box, and they were already 2 sizes too small for his growing feet. "Marcus, baby, breakfast is ready," his mother called from their tiny kitchen. Sarah Johnson worked 2 jobs, as a waitress during the day and as an office cleaner at night. She was already dressed in her blue waitress uniform, her hair neatly tied back and dark circles under her eyes showing how tired she was. The kitchen table wobbled as Marcus sat down to eat his breakfast, 2 pieces of toast and a glass of milk. They couldn't afford cereal this week because the electricity bill was higher than usual. His mother had already packed his lunch in a plastic grocery bag because his old lunchbox had broken last month, and they couldn't buy a new one yet. "Today will be better," Sarah told her son, trying to smile. But Marcus knew better. Nothing was better at Highland Middle School, where he was starting 7th grade. The other kids came from better neighborhoods, wore nice clothes, and carried expensive backpacks. His backpack was falling apart, held together by safety pins and hope. As Marcus walked to school, they couldn't afford the bus fare. He tried to practice what he would say if anyone made fun of him again. Last year, the bullying had been bad. A group of boys, led by James Parker, whose father owned a car dealership, had started calling him Trash Bag because he sometimes had to carry his books in plastic bags when his backpack was too torn. The school building came into view, and Marcus's stomach tightened. He saw expensive cars dropping off students wearing new clothes and carrying shiny new backpacks. Some kids had the latest phones in their hands, while Marcus didn't even own a basic phone. His mother had promised him they would get one when she saved enough money, but he knew that might take a long time. At the school entrance, Marcus tried to slip in quietly, but James Parker spotted him. "Hey, look who's here," James shouted, pointing at Marcus's duct-taped shoes. Trash Bag got an upgrade. Now he's got silver shoes. The other kids laughed, and someone took out their phone to record Marcus's embarrassment. Marcus kept his head down and walked faster to his first class, math. Inside his plastic bag were his prized possessions: 5 notebooks he had gotten on sale for 10 cents each, 2 pencils, and an eraser he had cut in half to make it last longer. Despite everything, Marcus was proud of one thing: he had the highest grades in his class last year. His mother always said, "They can take away our things, they can't take away what's in your head." Sitting in the back of the classroom, Marcus opened his math notebook and wrote the date carefully. Around him, other students were showing off their new school supplies and talking about their summer vacations. Nobody talked to him or sat next to him, but Marcus didn't mind. He had bigger dreams than fitting in at Highland Middle School. Every night, before sleeping on his lumpy couch, he would look at the torn magazine picture he had taped to the wall: a successful businessman in a nice suit, standing in front of a tall building. Someday, Marcus thought, that would be him. Life at Highland Middle School got harder for Marcus as the weeks passed. Every morning, he would sit in his first period math class, trying to ignore the whispers and laughs behind his back. But Marcus had a secret that nobody knew. He was earning money after school, doing whatever jobs he could find in his neighborhood. After the last bell rang each day, while other kids went home to play video games or hang out at the mall, Marcus started his own small business. He had made a simple flyer using the school library's computer and printer. Hard worker available, lawns, groceries, dog walking, fair prices. He had put these flyers in mailboxes all around his neighborhood. His first customer was Mrs. Rodriguez, an elderly lady who lived 3 blocks from his apartment. She needed help carrying her groceries up 3 flights of stairs twice a week. She paid him $5 each time and sometimes gave him a sandwich or cookies. Marcus kept this money hidden in a small tin box under his couch, saving every penny he could. Soon, more people started calling. Mr. Thompson, who had a bad back, hired Marcus to mow his lawn every Saturday. Old Mr. Chen from the corner store needed help organizing his stockroom on Sundays. Even grumpy Mrs. Peterson, who everyone said never smiled, asked Marcus to walk her dog after school on Wednesdays. But his school life was still tough. One day, while Marcus was helping Mrs. Rodriguez with her groceries, James Parker and his friends rode by on their expensive bikes. They stopped and started filming him with their phones. "Look at trash bag." James laughed. "He's become a bag boy. Hey Marcus, when you're done being a servant, can you clean my house too? I'll pay you in duct tape for your shoes." Marcus felt his face get hot with shame, but Mrs. Rodriguez surprised everyone. She stepped forward, her small frame suddenly looking fierce. "You boys should be ashamed," she shouted in her thick accent. "This young man is working hard and helping people. What are you doing except being cruel?" The boys rode away laughing, but Marcus saw James's face turn red. That evening, Mrs. Rodriguez made Marcus sit down in her small kitchen and gave him a plate of warm cookies. "Never be ashamed of honest work," she told him. "My husband came to this country with nothing but his willingness to work hard. Now my daughter is a doctor." At home, Marcus's mother noticed changes in her son. Even though he was tired from school and his jobs, he never complained. Every night, Sarah would come home from her cleaning job at 11 p.m. to find Marcus at their wobbly kitchen table, doing homework under the flickering kitchen light. He maintained straight A's in all the subjects, especially in math and science. One evening, while counting his savings, now $127.50, Marcus heard his mother crying in her room. He found her sitting on her bed, holding a stack of bills. The electricity company had raised their rates again, and they were behind on payments. Without saying a word, Marcus went to get his tin box and gave her all his savings. Sarah tried to refuse. "Baby, this is your money. You worked so hard for it." "We're a team, Mom," Marcus said firmly, "and teams help each other." That night, after his mother went to bed, Marcus stayed up late doing his homework. He had a math test tomorrow, and he needed to get another A, but he was also thinking about something else. Earlier that day, while cleaning Mr. Chen's stockroom, he had noticed how the old man struggled with his inventory. Maybe, Marcus thought, there was a better way to organize everything. Using the back of his math notebook, Marcus started drawing plans for a simple inventory system. He didn't know it yet, but this late-night idea would be the first step toward something bigger than he could imagine. While his classmates mocked him for being poor, Marcus was quietly learning valuable lessons about business, hard work, and problem-solving. The next morning, as Marcus put on his duct-taped shoes and picked up his plastic bag of books, he felt different. Let them laugh, he thought. Every joke they made just gave him more determination to succeed. He had a plan now, and nothing was going to stop him. The day that changed everything started like any other Thursday at Highland Middle School. Marcus walked into his classroom, wearing his usual worn-out clothes and carrying his books in a plastic bag. But today, there was excitement in the air. James Parker was handing out bright blue invitation cards to his upcoming birthday party. Marcus tried to ignore it, just like he ignored most things at school. He focused on taking notes in class and answering questions correctly when teachers called on him. But during lunch break, something unexpected happened. James Parker walked up to Marcus's lonely table in the cafeteria. "Here," James said, holding out a blue invitation card. "My mom said I have to invite everyone in the class, even you." The words were mean, but Marcus's heart jumped. He had never been invited to a party before. That evening, Marcus showed the invitation to his mother. Sarah Johnson looked worried. "Baby, we can't afford a birthday gift," she said softly. But Marcus had been saving again from his neighborhood jobs. He had $43 hidden in his new tin box, meant for a new backpack, but he decided a gift was more important. The next day, Marcus went to the mall after his work at Mr. Chen's store. He spent an hour picking out the perfect gift, a popular video game that other kids at school talked about. It cost almost all his savings, but Marcus thought it would be worth it. Maybe, just maybe, this could be his chance to make friends. On Saturday evening, Marcus put on his cleanest shirt and the pants his mother had carefully ironed. She had even managed to buy him a cheap pair of shoes from the thrift store. They weren't new, but at least they didn't have duct tape. Marcus held the carefully wrapped gift and took 3 buses to reach James's house in the nice part of town. When he arrived at the address on the invitation, Marcus's mouth fell open. James's house was huge, with perfect green lawns and shiny cars in the driveway. Music was playing, and he could see kids through the big windows. Taking a deep breath, Marcus walked up to the front door and rang the doorbell. Nobody answered. He rang again. Still nothing. Then he heard laughing from inside. Through the window, Marcus saw James and his friends pointing at him and filming with their phones. The truth hit him like a punch to the stomach. There was no party. At least, not for him. It had all been a cruel joke. Marcus stood there, holding his gift, feeling like the world was spinning. He'd heard more laughter, and someone yelled, "Look at Trash Bag." He actually thought he was invited. Tears burned in his eyes as he turned and ran. He ran past the perfect houses, past the shiny cars, past everything that reminded him of what he didn't have. The gift fell from his hands, but he didn't stop to pick it up. He ran until his lungs hurt and his new thrift store shoes gave him blisters. Finally, he stopped at a small park. It was getting dark, and the park was empty. Marcus sat on a swing, letting his tears fall freely now. He had worked so hard for that gift money. He had really thought things might change. When Marcus finally got home, his mother took one look at his face and knew something was wrong. As soon as she hugged him, Marcus broke down completely. Through his tears, he told her everything, about the fake invitation, the cruel joke, the wasted money, all of it. Sarah Johnson held her son tight, her own tears falling into his hair. "Listen to me, Marcus," she said firmly. "Those kids, they think they're better than you because they have more things. But having things doesn't make you better. It's what's in here that matters." She pointed to his heart, then his head. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay on his couch, staring at the ceiling, something hard and determined growing in his chest. He got up and went to the kitchen table, turning on the flickering light. He took out his notebook, the one where he had been drawing plans for Mr. Chen's inventory system. One day, he whispered to himself, writing down new ideas. "One day they'll see. I'm going to be somebody. And when I make it, I'll make sure no other kid feels this way." It was the night Marcus Johnson stopped trying to fit in and started planning to stand out. After the party incident, Marcus changed. He still went to Highland Middle School, still wore his old clothes, and still carried his books in plastic bags. But something was different about him now. While other students played and gossiped during lunch break, Marcus spent every free moment in the school library. Mrs. Watson, the kind librarian with gray hair and warm eyes, noticed how Marcus would rush in as soon as the lunch bell rang. She saw him reading books about computers, business, and technology. One day, she approached his table where he sat alone, surrounded by books. "You know," she said softly, "the library has 3 computers that students can use." She handed him a permission slip. "If your mother signs this, you can stay after school to use them." That evening, Marcus could hardly contain his excitement as he showed the form to his mother. Sarah Johnson signed it immediately, happy to see her son's eyes shining again. The next day, Marcus started staying at school for an extra 2 hours every day. Mrs. Watson showed him how to use the computers. Marcus was a quick learner. Soon, he discovered free online coding websites and began teaching himself how to program. While James Parker and his friends were still making fun of his clothes, Marcus was learning to write his first lines of code. His after-school jobs continued. Mr. Chen's store now had a simple inventory system that Marcus had created using just paper and clever organization. The old man was so impressed that he started paying Marcus extra and telling all his business friends about the smart young boy who helped him. One day, during computer time, Marcus found a website that taught how to make phone apps. He remembered how Mr. Chen struggled to keep track of his delivery schedules. What if there was an app that could help small store owners like him? During lunch breaks, Marcus started drawing plans in his notebook. But the bullies hadn't forgotten about him. One day, James and his friends cornered Marcus in the hallway. "Still playing with your trash bags, trash bag?" James laughed, reaching for Marcus's plastic bag of books. But this time, Marcus didn't lower his eyes. He looked straight at James and said calmly, At least I'm doing something with my life. What are you doing with yours? The bullies were so surprised by his response that they stepped back. Marcus walked past them, head held high, clutching his precious notebook full of app designs. That afternoon, something amazing happened. Mrs. Watson called Marcus to her desk and showed him a flyer. "There's a state-level young programmers competition next month," she said. "I think you should enter." Marcus stared at the flyer. The prize was $500 and a used laptop. His heart raced at the thought of having his own computer, but the entry fee was $50. That was more money than he had. But Mrs. Watson wasn't finished. "I've been watching you work hard every day," she said, pulling out an envelope. "The library staff took up a collection. We want to sponsor your entry fee." For the first time since the party incident, Marcus felt tears in his eyes. But these were different tears. He had never had an adult, besides his mother, believe in him like this. That night, Marcus worked even harder. When his mother came home at 11 p.m., she found him practicing coding problems on paper since they couldn't afford a computer at home. He had drawn a computer keyboard on cardboard and was using it to memorize typing positions. "Baby, you need to sleep," Sarah said worriedly. "Just one more hour, Mom," Marcus replied, not looking up from his work. "I'm going to win that competition, and when I do, things are going to change." His mother watched him for a moment, then smiled and kissed his forehead. The scared boy who came home crying from a fake party was gone. In his place was a young man with a mission. What Marcus didn't know was that this competition would be just the beginning. His life was about to change in ways he couldn't imagine. While his classmates were still calling him trash bag, Marcus Johnson was quietly building his future, one line of code at a time. 4 years had passed since Marcus left Highland Middle School. Now at 18, he sat nervously in a bright office at NIT, hardly believing he was really there. On the desk in front of him sat the many scholarships he had won over the years. It had all started with that first programming competition in middle school. He remembered that day clearly. Not only had he won the competition and the laptop, but his simple app idea for small business owners had caught the attention of the judges. Through high school, Marcus had kept working and learning. His used laptop became his most precious possession, and he spent every free moment coding and creating. "Well, Mr. Johnson," said Dr. Roberts, the MIT admissions officer, looking through his papers. "Your application is quite impressive. Perfect set scores, straight A's, and you've already created several working apps." She looked up at Marcus, who still wore second-hand clothes, but now carried a worn laptop bag instead of a plastic one. "Yes, ma'am," Marcus replied politely. "I started with an inventory app for local small businesses. It now has over 10,000 users." He didn't mention that he had built it while living in their small apartment, coding late into the night after finishing his homework and his part-time job at the library. Dr. Roberts smiled. "And I see you've applied for every possible scholarship." Marcus nodded. Even though he had earned some money from his apps, college was still far too expensive for his family. His mother was still working 2 jobs, though now she managed the diner instead of just waiting tables. "Mr. Johnson, I'm pleased to tell you that MIT is offering you a full scholarship," Dr. Roberts announced. "Your tuition, room, and board will be completely covered." Marcus sat there, stunned. His hands trembled as he accepted the official letter. That evening, when he called his mother with the news, they both cried happy tears. Life at MIT was different from anything Marcus had experienced. His roommate, David Chen, came from a wealthy family in California. At first, Marcus felt out of place among students who wore expensive clothes and carried the latest gadgets. But soon, his programming skills earned him respect in the computer science department. To save money, Marcus worked 3 jobs, at the university library, as a teaching assistant for programming classes, and continuing to maintain his small business apps. Every dollar he earned went into his savings or back home to his mother. One day, during his second semester, Marcus was working late in the computer lab when he had an idea. He remembered how hard it had been for him to learn coding with limited resources. What if he could create an app that would teach coding to kids who couldn't afford expensive classes? For the next 6 months, Marcus worked on his new project every spare moment. He named it Copy Kids and designed it to work even on old phones and computers. The app would teach basic programming skills through fun games and simple exercises. When he finished the first version, Marcus tested it at a local community center in a poor neighborhood near MIT. The kids loved it. Soon, other community centers were asking to use the app. But Marcus faced a problem. Running the servers for Cody Kids cost money, and he wanted to keep it free for users. He needed investors, but no one took him seriously at first. They saw his simple clothes and humble background and dismissed him. Then, during a university tech fair, Marcus's Cody Kids display caught the attention of Sarah Martinez, a former MIT graduate who now ran a successful tech company. She tried the app and immediately saw its potential. "This is exactly what the tech industry needs," she told Marcus. "Not another app for rich kids, but something that can help underprivileged children learn valuable skills." That meeting changed everything. Sarah offered to invest $100,000 in Cody Kids. For the first time, Marcus had real money to develop his ideas, but he didn't spend any of it on himself. Instead, he hired 2 other students from poor backgrounds to help him improve the app. As Marcus walked back to his dorm that night, he thought about how far he had come from those days of carrying books in plastic bags. But this wasn't the end of his journey. In fact, it was just the beginning of something much bigger. 10 years after graduating from MIT, Marcus Johnson sat in his office on the 30th floor of a sleek building in downtown Boston. Through his window, he could see the city skyline, so different from the view of broken streetlights he grew up with. His company, Learn Life, had grown from the simple Cody Kids app into something much bigger. The morning news played quietly on his office TV. Educational technology company Learn Life reaches 10 million users worldwide. CEO Marcus Johnson's free learning platform is revolutionizing education for underprivileged communities. Marcus turned off the TV and looked at the framed items on his wall. There was his old plastic bag from school days, preserved in a glass case. Next to it hung his first laptop, the one he won in that middle school competition. These weren't there to remind him of bad times, but to show how far he had come. His assistant knocked on the door. "Mr. Johnson, the school principals from Detroit are here for the meeting." Marcus straightened his tie. He wore suits now, but never the expensive designer ones his wealthy colleagues preferred. He believed in living simply and putting money where it really mattered. In the conference room, 20 principals from Detroit's poorest schools waited. Marcus walked in, carrying his regular laptop, not the fancy ones other CEOs used. Some principals looked surprised to see such a young CEO. Marcus was only 32. "Good morning," Marcus began. "I was once a student in one of your schools. I know what it's like to not have a computer at home, to not have internet access, to feel left behind because you're poor." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Today, that changes for your students." He opened his laptop and showed them Learn Life's newest program. It wasn't just about coding anymore. The platform now offered free courses in math, science, languages, and business. Every student would get a simple tablet, loaded with all Learn Life's programs. They could work offline when they didn't have internet. But what about the cost? One principal asked nervously. Marcus smiled. "Everything is free. Learn Life will provide all the equipment and training. We make our money from companies who use our business software. That lets us give everything to schools for free." The principals couldn't believe it. One older woman had tears in her eyes. "Do you know how many children this will help?" she asked. Marcus knew exactly how many. He had once been one of those children. While his company was worth billions now, he never forgot his roots. Half of Learn Life's employees came from disadvantaged backgrounds. He had a special program to hire single parents, paying them well and offering free childcare. After the meeting, Marcus walked to his old neighborhood. The streets looked the same, but something was different. Through windows, he could see kids using Learn Life tablets, learning things he never had the chance to learn at their age. He stopped at Mr. Chen's old store, now run by his son. The store used Learn Life's business software, the grown-up version of that first simple app Marcus had created. On the wall hung a photo of teenage Marcus with the old Mr. Chen. "Dad always said you would be successful," Mr. Chen's son said, smiling. "He was so proud when your company became famous." Marcus's phone buzzed. Another big tech company wanted to buy Learn Life for billions of dollars. He had received many such offers, but always said no. Money wasn't what drove him anymore. He had enough to live comfortably and help his mother retire. What he wanted was to change lives. Walking back to his office, Marcus passed a group of school kids. They were all holding Learn Life tablets, excitedly discussing their lessons. None of them knew that the man in the simple suit walking past them was the CEO of Learn Life. None of them knew he had once carried his books in plastic bags. Marcus smiled to himself. His company was growing bigger every day, but his best reward was seeing kids learning, having chances he never had. The boy who was once bullied for being poor had built something that was changing millions of lives. And he was just getting started. The day Marcus Johnson returned to Highland Middle School was sunny and warm. 20 years had passed since he walked these halls with his plastic bags and duct-taped shoes. Now, at 32, he stood in front of the school, his Tesla parked quietly in the visitor's spot. Principal Harris, a new face at the old school, waited at the entrance. "Welcome back, Mr. Johnson," she said warmly. "The students are very excited to meet you." As Marcus walked through the familiar hallways, memories flooded back. There was the library where Mrs. Watson had first shown him the computers, the cafeteria where he'd sat alone, the hallway where James Parker and his friends had bullied him. But today was about making new memories. The school gymnasium was packed with students, teachers, and local news crews. Marcus had chosen this school for his biggest announcement yet. As he walked to the podium, he noticed something that made him smile. Many students were already using Learn Life tablets. 20 years ago, Marcus began, I sat where you're sitting now. I was the poor kid, the one they called trash bag because I couldn't afford a backpack. The gym was completely silent. But today, I'm here to tell you that your circumstances don't define your future. He paused, looking at the faces in front of him. Some kids wore expensive clothes, others wore hand-me-downs, just like he used to. Today, Learn Life is launching the Future Builders program. We're not just giving tablets anymore. We're creating a complete support system. The screens behind him lit up with details of the program. Every student from a low-income family would receive not just educational tools, but also new clothes, proper school supplies, and most importantly, mentoring from successful professionals. And that's not all, Marcus continued. We're also opening a technology center right here at Highland Middle School. It will be open every day after school, with free meals for students who want to stay and learn. The audience erupted in applause, but Marcus wasn't finished. "One more thing," he said, reaching under the podium. He pulled out an old, worn plastic bag, the same kind he used to carry. "This bag reminds me of where I came from. Some people used it to shame me. But guess what? That shame turned into motivation." As he spoke, the back doors of the gymnasium opened. Workers started bringing in boxes, hundreds of them. Inside each of these boxes, Marcus explained, is a new backpack, fully loaded with supplies. But these aren't just any backpacks. Each one has a built-in solar charger and a special pocket for your Learn Life tablet. In the audience, Marcus spotted some familiar faces. James Parker was there, no longer the school bully, but a parent now. His son was a student at Highland. James looked different, older, humbler. Their eyes met, and James gave a small, apologetic nod. After the assembly, as students excitedly opened their new backpacks, a small boy approached Marcus. He wore worn-out shoes and carried his books in a plastic bag. "Sir," he said quietly, "I'm like you were. They make fun of me too." Marcus knelt down to the boy's level. "What's your name?" "Tommy," the boy replied. "Well, Tommy," Marcus said, helping him unpack his new backpack, "let me tell you something. 20 years from now, you'll be standing where I am. Just promise me one thing. When you make it, help others like I'm helping you." Tommy's eyes shined with new hope. "I promise," he said firmly. As Marcus drove home that evening, he thought about Tommy and all the other students like him. His phone kept buzzing with messages about Learn Life's stock price hitting new highs. But that wasn't what made him smile. It was remembering Tommy's face when he got his new backpack. He made a quick stop at his mother's house, not the old apartment, but a comfortable home he bought her years ago. Sarah Johnson still volunteered at local schools, sharing her son's story with other struggling parents. "You did good, baby," she said, hugging him. "You did real good." Marcus smiled. The boy with the plastic bags had come full circle. But his journey wasn't over. It was just beginning a new chapter. 5 years after Marcus's return to Highland Middle School, his story had become legendary. Learn Life was now valued at over $50 billion. That wasn't what people talked about most. They talked about the lives he had changed. On a crisp autumn morning, Marcus stood in front of a huge crowd at Detroit's largest convention center. Today was the first Future Builders Summit, where students from his program gathered to share their success stories. The convention center was packed with 5,000 teenagers, all wearing the special Learn Life backpacks. Among them sat Tommy, the boy who had approached Marcus 5 years ago with his plastic bag. Now a high school senior, Tommy had just won the National Young Innovators Award for creating an app that helped homeless families find shelter and resources. When I started Learn Life, Marcus began his speech. People said I was crazy to give everything away for free. They said no business could survive being so generous. He smiled, looking at the sea of young faces. Well, today we have helped 2 million students graduate from high school. Over 500,000 have gone to college with our scholarships. And yes, we're still giving everything away for free. The audience cheered. On the big screens behind Marcus, photos showed the changes his program had made. Old, broken-down schools now had modern technology centers. Empty libraries were filled with students using Learn Life tablets. Cafeterias that once had hungry kids now served free, healthy meals. But the best part, Marcus continued, isn't the numbers, it's the stories. He pointed to different sections of the audience. Maria over there started a business at 16. David created a program that teaches music to blind children. Sarah developed a system to help elderly people remember their medications. In the front row, Marcus's mother Sarah wiped tears from her eyes. She remembered the nights she had cried, worried about her son's future. Now she ran the Learn Life Parent Support Program, helping other struggling parents see hope for their children. James Parker was there too. After that day at Highland Middle School, he had approached Marcus to apologize for the bullying. Now he worked for Learn Life, managing their anti-bullying programs in schools. His son and Tommy had become best friends, a fact that always made Marcus smile. Today, Marcus announced, Learn Life is launching our biggest project yet. We're building learning centers in every poor neighborhood across America. These centers will be open 24 hours a day, with free food, computers, and tutors. No child will ever have to do homework under a flickering light or go hungry while studying. The crowd erupted in cheers again, but Marcus raised his hand for quiet. And one more thing, he said softly. Every student who graduates from our program and wants to help others will have a job waiting at Learn Life. Because success isn't just about making money, it's about lifting others up as you rise. After the speech, Marcus walked through the convention center, talking with students and parents. He stopped at an exhibit where Tommy was demonstrating his app. On the wall behind Tommy hung a familiar plastic bag in a frame. You kept it? Marcus said, surprised. Tommy nodded. Just like you kept yours, to remind me where I started and how far I can go. That evening, Marcus drove to his old neighborhood. The streets looked different now, cleaner, brighter, full of hope. He parked in front of his old apartment building, which Learn Life had transformed into a free learning center. Inside, children filled every room, working on computers, getting help with homework, eating healthy meals. On one wall hung a huge photo of young Marcus with his plastic bag and duct-taped shoes. Below it were his words, "Your circumstances don't define your future, your response to them does." As Marcus watched the children studying and dreaming of better futures, he knew his work wasn't finished. There were still more kids carrying plastic bags, more students needing help, more dreams waiting to be fulfilled. But now these children had something he never had at their age. They had hope. And hope, Marcus had learned, was the most powerful force for change in the world. The boy who was once bullied for being poor had become the man who made sure no child would ever feel that pain again, and that was worth more than all the billions in his bank account.